Welcome to Into the Night. I'm Nari, your guide on today's excursion down a twisted path. Be careful not to get lost. Be it dark or light, it's easy to lose your way. Are you ready? Then let's begin. The Opinion Poll, Part 2. His phone pinged, and looking at the clock, he knew what that meant. It was time for him to review the proposed legislation so he could do his civic duty and cast his vote. Every American over the age of 18 received the same message at the same time, and everyone had a 1-hour window in which to vote on an issue. As his high school social studies teacher taught Leland and his classmates years earlier, America now enjoyed the truest form of democracy because of this new method of making decisions. Politicians no longer voted for citizens. The government conducted daily polls, and policies were based on the results of the will of the people. Good ideas flourished, and bad ones lost to the common sense of the voters. Easy to participate in, the polls appeared on citizens' phones, and results were secured through a highly developed encryption process. No more of those faulty voting machines of the past. Leland read through the information and then clicked on the link for the poll. As the public service announcements on radio and television advertised, the questions were clearly worded for clarity so that all citizens could understand the choices. Leland's wife, out grocery shopping at the moment, would vote on the same issues, as would millions of others across the country. Leland selected his answers and hit send. Another ping from his phone reminded him that he needed to stop daydreaming in his easy chair and run errands for the college restoration project. Just like the hosts of the remodeling show on television that so many people enjoyed watching, Leland picked out the new flooring, etc. for each project himself, and he felt like the proverbial kid in a candy shop doing so. Even as a boy, he loved hardware stores. Even the smell of the lumber seemed comforting to him, and it was a natural progression for him to become a builder and renovator. By that afternoon, he'd chosen the materials for the buildings on campus, and he walked around what remained of the old school before his crews arrived to tear down walls, rip up old floors, and prepare the building for their makeover. A rental property corporation bought the grounds, and the goal was to turn this stately brick building into luxury condominiums by the end of the year. Surveying the buildings, Leland envisioned the new housing complex springing to life from the ashes of the old university. I feel like I'm preserving history. No one attends universities anymore, and it would be a shame to have such beautiful architecture demolished for a parking lot. At least these buildings will have a new purpose, and I can't wait to see how this project turns out. Leland walked up the steps of the brick building on the far eastern end of the sprawling campus. Elegantly engraved above the doorway were the words Social Sciences. Leland didn't know what those were, but he had the time and a sense of adventure, so this seemed as good a building as any to snoop through. I never know what interesting piece of old Americana I'll find hidden away in one of these abandoned properties. He pulled open the heavy door, flipped on his flashlight, and made his way down the hall. His footsteps echoed on the concrete floor. Dust particles swirled in the beam of his flashlight as he checked room after room. Classrooms were undisturbed, and what he guessed to be offices contained desks and obsolete pieces of technology. He felt drawn to a room at the end of the hall. The words on the door wore off long ago, but when he stepped inside, he found row after row of books. Blowing the dust off one, then another, he thumbed through their brittle pages. No doubt these will be thrown away and burned once we clear out the building for renovation. It's a shame. At one time, someone wrote these so they could be used and enjoyed. They look to be what Grandpa Ben described as textbooks that students read or studied for their classes. I can't imagine getting my information from anything but my phone, but books are quaint reminders of the past, even if they took up too much space. A title on the shelf caught his eye. What do we have here? Masterminding opinion polls. I didn't even know they knew about opinion polls back then. This could be interesting. Excited by his find, Leland wiped the dust off the cover and took the book with him as he walked out the door and down the hall to the exit. The warm sun outside caused him to squint after having spent time inside the darkened social sciences building. He walked to his truck, grabbed his lunch from the front seat of the cab, and found a spot under a shade tree. Sitting on the grass, he leaned against the trunk, spread out his lunch before him, and cracked open the book. Soon he forgot about lunch and delved deep into the world of polling. He looked up from time to time to consider what he'd read. The first few chapters dealt with what a poll was, how to conduct a poll, and how to determine the target population. That's weird. We're all the target population. Did only some people take polls in the past? Each time he questioned what he read, it made him more determined to read further. The next section in the book covered sampling frames, public opinion, and decision-making. Leland had lived his entire life never wondering how the government created daily polls. He didn't know anyone who did. His parents spent their lives taking part in the policy surveys too, but no one questioned the polls or where they came from. Why would we? We're proud of them. We make the decisions that impact our nation. No one runs interference, no lobbyists pay off elected officials. Citizens control the direction America takes on domestic and foreign affairs issues. He became increasingly troubled, however, when he reached the final section of the chapters in the old political sciences book he found. Questionnaire design, question wording, framing effects, and the advantages and limitations of polls caused his anxiety to increase. The most dangerous side effect of polling comes from question bias. Depending on how a question is worded, the participant can be guided to reach the correct decision in the eyes of the poll creator. In other words, polls can say whatever the maker of the poll wants them to say. Cold fear stabbed at Leland's heart. Poll creators? I've never thought about who made the polls. No one would word a poll to make us vote one way or another, would they? Reading further, another sentence stopped him short. Our studies show that more than 75% of all responses can be predetermined by analyzing the wording of a given opinion poll question. While polls are useful in understanding general trends, the ease with which they can be manipulated should forego any use of them as policy determinators. What in the hell? Leland's heart rate quickened and his stress level rose as he read more. According to this book, whoever writes the survey questions can trick the participants into answering whichever way they choose. Sweat dropped from his forehead. When he reached the end of the book, he found a handwritten note in the back, folded up on a yellowed sheet of paper. If you have read this far, you understand that you are not free. You are not making policy decisions. The cabal of wealthy elites who took over our country will force their will upon the people while convincing Americans that the citizens make the decisions. It's a lie. Don't be fooled. They're coming for me. God help you all. It's signed by Professor Edward McMillan of the Political Science Department. A tear rolled down Leland's cheek. Everything, absolutely everything is a lie? Do they own us? Are we controlled under the guise of independence? Oh my God, he's right. We were never free. They let us believe we had control because that was our weakness. Our damned American pride and the belief that we were free made us so easy to subjugate. None of us saw it. Some never will. Hell, most won't want to know it. It feels better to believe the lie. At least years ago, we could vote out corrupt politicians. We don't even know who's pulling our strings now. We're nothing but slaves. Night had nearly fallen by the time Leland stood from the spot under the tree, still clutching the book in his hands. In the background, the loudspeakers came to life and blared a rousing rendition of the national anthem as the sun set on our country. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Into the Night Anthology podcast, written by Caroline Giammanco, narrated by Nari, theme music by Nico Rodriguez. You can find our links in the show notes. Into the Night is on your favorite podcatcher, so make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review to help other excursionists to join us. I'll see you next time, and remember, whether in the shadows or in the daylight, all twisted paths lead you into the night. Hi, excursionists. I'm so glad you stayed. If you ever wonder what I'm working on when I'm not here, you can find my current and past projects at narinarrates.com. That's also where you can sign up to be a story in my library, where every story somehow finds its way back home.